Speaking of which, India's national capital is witnessing some near-apocalyptic scenes. Delhi is flooded. The Yamuna River is 3 meters above the danger mark. It threatens to submerge the city and it continues to swell. Several areas of Delhi are inundated. The water is chest-high in some places. Hundreds are being evacuated from near the Yamuna's bank. Some have seen their homes ruined and their belongings swept away. The question is, why is this happening? Here's a report.
This drowning city isn't some battered backwater town. It's India's national capital, New Delhi, the capital of the most populous country in the world, the capital of a rising global power. But a torrent of unseasonal rainfall has brought it crashing down. Last weekend, it saw record-breaking rainfall. We told you about that. But that has calmed down in recent days. Despite this, Delhi is on the brink of catastrophe because of the rising waters of the Yamuna River. Now, on most days, calling the Yamuna a river may seem generous. Its absurd pollution levels leave it looking less like a river and more like a sewage canal. But this week, the Yamuna has reminded Delhi residents that it indeed is a river and it can embody all the fury of one. As we speak, the river is breaching all danger thresholds. Its water level is at an all-time high, 3 meters above the danger mark. The Yamuna crossed the danger level days ago. Its waters have been flowing into Delhi, submerging multiple areas in the city. There's now a scramble to evacuate people living along its banks. These are mostly poor people who live in makeshift houses. They've been facing the brunt of the river's fury for days now.
I lost my house, the crops, and now I do not have a place to live. I do not have food to eat.
The water gushed inside our house at such ferocious speed that we started crying. We somehow survived the night by sitting atop a wooden bed, but the water also damaged it. So we were forced to swim out of our houses.
Many of these vulnerable people moved to the about 2,500 relief camps set up across the city. There they have faced a lack of basic amenities like water and sanitation.
We are facing an acute water shortage here. No, we did not get any help from the government.
That isn't a ringing endorsement of Delhi's preparedness. And the problems aren't restricted to the people in relief camps. Delhi will face a 25% shortfall in drinking water in the coming days. That's because 3 water treatment plants have been shut down due to the flooding. But it seems like the government is slowly waking up.
Relief camps mein
There's been great difficulty regarding toilets and bathrooms in the relief camps due to some pilgrims also coming to the camps. So now some of these camps are being shifted to schools.
They can shift people into schools because schools and universities in the capital have been shut till the end of the week. Employees at non-essential government offices are working from home. An advisory has been sent to private sector offices to implement work from home as well. But all these are reactionary measures. They don't address the main cause of the river overflowing. Part of it is, of course, natural. Heavy rains have lashed India's northern states. It's far beyond the annual average rainfall levels. All this surplus water needs to go somewhere. So naturally, it will flow downstream along rivers. What's worse for Delhi are the compulsions of the states upstream. The major problem is taking place at a barrage in the state of Haryana. It is full due to the excess rainfall. Haryana has no choice but to discharge the water, and that discharge is what's leading to the Yamuna overflowing in New Delhi. But again, it's very easy to blame circumstances beyond one's control. To blame all this on an act of God or call it a natural calamity. The real question is, what have authorities been doing to prepare for crises like this? Flooding is not a new phenomenon in New Delhi. Even in years with normal rainfall, India's capital gets inundated. The Yamuna has overflowed in the past as well.
Every year, water enters our homes. Last year, the furniture got ruined. We tried to save it, but water kept increasing. For 2 days, the bank has been inundated. A lot of furniture has been destroyed. It has become an annual event. After the flood is over, only garbage remains. Garbage brings diseases in the form of mosquitoes, pests and snakes inside our homes.
Floods, garbage and disease. It's a shambolic look for the capital of one of the world's largest economies.
There's a new hot topic online, the internet apocalypse. It's exactly what it sounds like. There are warnings of a global disruption by 2025. Your network connections could snap. Your websites could crash. Your social media platforms could go offline. I know it sounds pretty serious. So where is this prediction coming from? A paper written by a computer science professor at the University of California. And why does it predict an internet apocalypse? Because of the sun. It's beautiful on a bright morning, but the sun has a temper too. Sometimes it releases huge bursts of energy. This takes the form of solar flares and electromagnetic fields. And where do they end up? Across the solar system, including here on Earth. In 2025, they're predicting a big solar storm. Bigger the storm, bigger the disturbance. So the fear is our internet cables could be affected. Now that would be deadly. Around 99% of international communication is done via fiber optic cables. Most of them are undersea cables. If they snap, the world would lose the internet. The obvious question is, has this happened before? Well, not on this scale. In 1859, there was a big solar storm. It fried telegraph lines and electrocuted engineers. In 1989, there was another one. It took out a Canadian power grid for hours. In 2011, China was hit by a solar storm. Their radio network in the south was disrupted. So to answer my question, yes, it has happened before. Then what's different this time? Possibly the scale. By 2025, the sun is expected to reach what is called the solar maximum. It's a period of high activity, which means the solar storm could become more powerful. Could it knock out the internet? Now that's hard to say. We haven't tested for such extreme situations, so our infrastructure may or may not hold up. If it doesn't, there could be chaos because the internet is not just a hobby anymore. Millions of jobs depend on it. So who is making sure this apocalypse does not happen? There's no word from NASA or any of the space agencies. There are some fake warnings online, but nothing official. Maybe the scientists are confident things are under control. After all, they've dealt with such warnings before. You may remember, some of you may remember, the Y2K problem. Experts thought computers would collapse in the year 2000. The reason was a bit complicated. Most digital programs use the last two digits to identify years. So 1942 was just 42. But the year 2000 presented a problem. The last two digits were 00. Would the computer read that as 2000 or 1900? This confusion consumed computer experts in that period. Some said it would take $600 billion to fix. But in the end, nothing happened. A couple of minor errors, but nothing major. Could this apocalypse warning be similar? Now, if you watch a lot of Hollywood, you may have your doubts. Solar storms have featured in multiple films, like Knowing, which stars Nicolas Cage, and Solar Flares, which was released in the year 2008. If you've seen these films, you must already be spooked. Unfortunately, Nicolas Cage cannot help us this time. Only scientists can. If you think about it, this story is a reflection of our times too. We're discussing a possibility, something that may or may not happen, something whose impact is unknown. Tells you how important the internet has become. Around 5 billion people around the world use it. It makes up around 10% of the global GDP and probably supports the remaining 90%. So life without the internet is not easy to contemplate. And that's exactly why governments and scientists should be thinking about it. Solar storm or not, an internet apocalypse cannot be left to chance. Our next story is from Thailand. It was a big day for the country. It was supposed to be a pivotal moment in Thai politics. A young radical prime minister was supposed to take charge. Pita Limjaroenrat. His party is called the Move Forward Party. It received the highest number of votes during the general election held in May. He formed an 8-party coalition to take charge. It was supposed to be his and Thailand's big moment. But it ended in a deadlock. And this was by design because Thailand's military has ensured that only their candidates win. Our next report brings you all the details.
Thailand will have to wait till next week to see if they get a new prime minister, because the vote that took place today ended in a deadlock. The winner of May's general election, Pita Limjaroenrat, was denied the prime minister's chair. His victory The victory of democracy over military dictatorship in Thailand stands nullified for now. And the worst part is, this doesn't come as a surprise. Thai politics have been rigged by the military, the service that's supposed to protect the country. Instead, in Thailand, the military cares only about protecting its own power and that of its backers, at the expense of the will of the people. To understand how this came about, you need to know a bit of Thailand's modern history. Ever since it got rid of absolute monarchy early in the last century, Thailand has seen 13 coups. Yes, 13. And these are just the successful ones. So the country and its people are used to the military marching on elected leaders and overthrowing them. The last time this happened was in 2014. The military took charge and Prayut Chan-o-cha became Prime Minister, which is a bit of a scam. He was always a military dictator who was declared Prime Minister to legitimize his rule. He participated in elections in 2019 and this year as well, and didn't win the popular vote in either. But while he got to retain power in 2019 due to the military's political engineering, this year there was no chance for him to hang on to power. Because the Thai people had had enough. They voted overwhelmingly for change. And to bring about that change, most Thai people voted for this man, Pita Limjaroenrat, the outsider candidate who promised to shake up the system. He's 42 years old, a Harvard graduate and a businessman. And more importantly, he's the one who won the last election. His party won 151 seats out of the 500 being contested in May. The party that came second won 141 seats. And these two parties are allies, as are 6 other parties. They have a total of 312 out of the 500 seats in the lower house of parliament. So you may be wondering, that sounds like a clear majority. How haven't they won yet? That's where the Thai military's jugglery comes in. You see, to become Prime Minister in Thailand, it isn't enough to win the election. A clear majority in the 500-member lower house is not enough. No, you also need to appease the Thai upper house, the Senate. This has 250 members, and all these members were appointed by the military. Do you see the game being played here? The military rigged a third of the votes for Prime Minister in their favor. It's almost impossible for anyone not of the military's choosing to become Prime Minister, not unless they sweep almost all the seats in the general election. While Pita Limjaroenrat and his coalition had 312 votes, they needed 376 for him to become Prime Minister. It's impossible as things stand at the moment. The pro-democracy parties will have a chance to form the government again next week. Another vote is scheduled for July 19th.
With the results of what happened in the parliament today, I accepted, but I'm not giving up. In very short, I accepted that I couldn't reach 376. I got 324, and there's 200 abstains. I'm not giving up. I'm going to strategize once again to consolidate the voice just to make sure that we reach 376.
Even though there's still determination, there is a good chance the pro-democracy parties won't have the numbers again. The military and their puppets in Thailand's Senate can just keep blocking the democracy parties, frustrate them until their coalition collapses. It's a dirty tactic, but one you can easily expect a military junta to employ. The only thing that could stop them might be public anger. Because, as we said, in all these power games, the real losers are the people of Thailand. The ones who had cast their vote for change, who had voted to oust the military junta. Now they may decide to take to the streets once again and protest against this unfair system. Young Thai people have rallied against the military in recent years. They're expected to again in the coming hours and days. Even before the vote, security was tightened around the parliamentary complex. It seems the military knew that the people would not appreciate their antics. But instead of playing these cynical games, it's time the Thai military returns to its real duty, protecting the country from external threats instead of becoming the biggest internal threat to the Thai people.
What is the cost of your clothes? I'm not talking about the number printed on price tags. My question is about the real cost. Now, if you are not sure, you'll want to watch the story because there's a good chance that your clothes come from fast fashion, which is only getting faster and destroying our planet at a greater speed. I'll tell you more about it, but first some good news. Countries are slowly waking up to the greed of fast fashion, and the latest among them is France. It has released a bonus scheme. It's for those who have a rip in their trousers or a shirt with a misplaced button or a pair of worn-out shoes. France will pay you for these clothes and shoes to be repaired. The government will pay anywhere between $6 and $28. They've set aside $172 million for this. They're calling it the Repair Bonus Fund. It will be used over the span of 5 years, and it's meant to encourage people to mend their clothes. I know it sounds quite random, but it's also intelligent. You see, France has a clothing waste problem. It generates 700,000 tons of textile waste every year. About 2/3 of this ends up in landfills. But this problem is not unique to France. The world over, 92 million tons of textile is discarded every year. 92 million tons every year. A truck full of waste clothes is dumped in a landfill every second. What explains this? Fast fashion. It's a relatively recent phenomenon. It began during the 1990s. That's when retailers began to introduce cheaper clothes. So cheap that people scrambled to buy them. But what made these clothes affordable? Their quality or the lack of it. These clothes were poorly made. They were mass-produced at breakneck speed to match the pace of fashion trends. Decades later, fast fashion is still in trend. It has made style cheap and convenient, and we all lap it up. Think about your wardrobe. And be honest. Remember that outfit you were once so eager to buy, the one that's now buried at the back of your closet. How long has it been since you last wore it? We buy a different outfit for every occasion, or a new outfit to match a new trend. Yet so many clothes languish deep inside our cupboards. Many of them don't fit us anymore. Others have gone out of fashion. Some have never ever been worn. Here's what a study found. A majority of people wear just 20% of their closet 80% of the time. And at least 12% of our clothes are quote-unquote inactive, meaning they've been forgotten about. Out of sight, out of mind. And yet we continue to buy more clothes. The average consumer is now buying 60% more clothing than they did 15 years ago. Because fast fashion offers us the choice to do so. It churns out new styles on an ever shorter cycle. But it does not design or produce clothes that last. So it's ironic that they last almost forever. More than 60% of fibers used in clothes are synthetic. So when our clothing ends up in a landfill, it does not decay. And this cycle is problematic from the word go. It starts with how the fast fashion industry produces clothes. The boom in production has increased carbon emissions. Textile production generates 10% of global carbon emissions. It contributes to 20% of global wastewater. After all, it takes 20,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of cotton and 2,700 liters of water to make just one t-shirt. That's enough water for one person to drink for 900 days. Is a new dress or a trendy pair of jeans really worth it? Maybe it's time to check our privilege, because fast fashion is ultimately about that. The privilege to buy as many clothes as we want, usually only for their style. And it is a privilege to ignore the environmental consequences of all of it, not just in the now, but also in the future. By 2030, 134 million tons of textile waste will be discarded annually. And the apparel industry's global emissions will double. So it's time for us to slow down, to appreciate what we have before we try to acquire more. And I must say, a lot of what I've said is a note to self. Shopping feels good in the moment, but the repercussions may not be worth it. So let's try to buy sustainably, recycle our belongings, reuse them, because when it comes to fashion waste, a stitch in time could save our planet. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Starting with North Korea, the country's media has released the footage of its latest ballistic missile launch. Meanwhile, a brawl broke out in Kosovo's parliament. Lawmakers threw fists at each other after Kosovo's prime minister was sprayed with water during his address. While some politicians were fighting in Kosovo, others were offering each other coffee in Lithuania. Dutch Prime Minister Rutte asked the Ukrainian President Zelensky where he got his cup of coffee from. Zelensky offered his coffee to the Dutch leader, but he refused, saying, "You're fighting a war, this is your coffee." The two then decided to share the beverage. And finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1930, the first ever FIFA World Cup began in the South American nation of Uruguay. FIFA selected this country because its national football team won the Olympic football tournament against Argentina in 1928. It was the last football tournament organized as a part of the Summer Olympics. We're leaving you with that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Nuk ka votim.
Qetësi, ju lutem.
Është bërë e ne nuk e kemi kundërshtuar edhe denoncuar.
Nalu bre, nalu. Ju lutem, policia brenda kuvendit.
You get a coffee.
You want Tea time.
No, you are fighting a war. This is your coffee. No, you have to stay home.
Okay, I will share you. 50%. I will
together.
We'll share it.